Hello, I'm Alan, and welcome to today's edition of Alan's Cycling Adventures. I'm really excited today because I've got a special guest. This is Teresa, and she's going to be riding with me today. Today is Sunday, January 8th, 2023. It's a new year. It's a new metric century a month challenge. For those of you who don't know what a metric century is, it's a ride of 100 kilometers or more, which is about 62.2 miles. Even more exciting, this is Teresa's very first metric century ever. So be sure to give her a special shout out in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or ideas for future editions of Alan's Cycling Adventures, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Well, without further ado, let's ride. For those of you who have been following my channel, you may recall that I started the Metric Century a Month Challenge back at the beginning of 2022. I completed the first 10 months, January through October. Unfortunately, as many of you are also aware, I was in an accident about a week after the October Metric Century a Month Challenge. I was out on a training ride and got hit by a car. I fractured 2 ribs and punctured my left lung and was out of commission for a little while. Fortunately, the doctors cleared me to start riding again back in December of 2022. And although it was too late to save the Metric Century a Month Challenge for that year, it did give me the opportunity to get back into riding shape and be able to start the Metric Century a Month Challenge for this year. You may also notice that I'm on a different bike on this ride than the other videos on my channel. For that, I have to give a special shout out to my son, Zach. He was kind enough to let me borrow his bike until my bike is repaired. I did not have the go-ahead from the insurance company to start repairing my bike until December. And due to a shortage of parts, it's going to take a few months before I get my bike back. However, in the meantime, I do have my son's bike. So like I said, a special shout out to Zach. I love you, and I really appreciate your letting me use your bike until I get mine back. In terms of the statistics for today's ride, as you can see from the video, it was a beautiful winter day, nice clear blue skies. It was cold. It is winter in the Northeast, of course. And so at the start of the ride, the temperature was 31 degrees. By the end of the ride, it had warmed up a bit to 39 degrees. In terms of wind, we didn't have a lot of wind, thankfully. At the start, the wind was out of the north at 3 miles per hour. And at the conclusion of the ride, the wind had shifted to being out of the southeast at 2 miles per hour. In terms of the length of today's ride, it was 62.42 miles, which comes out to 100.5 kilometers. And so it definitely qualifies as a metric century. We did have a total of 2,785 feet of elevation gain on today's ride. And there was one major climb which came about 5 miles into the ride, where we gained 207 feet of elevation over 0.66 miles with an average gradient of 5%. Our elapsed time for today's ride was 6 hours and 59 minutes and 15 seconds, with a moving time of 6 hours, 8 minutes, and 49 seconds. That gave us an average moving speed of 10.2 miles per hour and a maximum speed of 25.1 miles per hour. My average heart rate on this ride was 105 beats per minute, and I had a maximum heart rate of 140 beats per minute, and I burned approximately 1,371 calories according to Strava. In terms of the location of today's ride, the entire ride was in the state of New Jersey. We started in Garwood, went through Westfield, Scotch Plains, Fanwood, Berkeley Heights, Watchung, Greenbrook Township, Martinsville, Bridgewater Township, Liberty Corner, Pluckerman, Somerset, Bedminster, Lamington, and then in Lamington we did turn around and rode back through Bedminster, Somerset, Pluckerman, Liberty Corner, Bridgewater Township, Martinsville, Greenbrook Township, Watchung, Berkeley Heights, Fanwood, Scotch Plains, Westfield, and back into Garwood. I did alter the route from my previous metric centuries. My previous metric centuries were essentially a big loop, and those earlier metric centuries did have 5 major climbs. However, if you recall back in the October metric century challenge, when I got about 28 miles in, I had a shifter cable snap, which left me in my most difficult gear. And at that point in the ride, I had completed 1 major climb with 4 more major climbs to go. And since I didn't want to do that in my hardest gear, I ended up turning around and backtracking along my route. I did decide, since this was Teresa's first metric century ever, I didn't want to make it too difficult on her. And so I decided to mostly do the same thing as what I did in October, with the exception of, in October, the turnaround point was not at the halfway point of the ride. And so when I got back to my house, I went past the house for about 1.5 miles, 2 miles, and then turned around and came back, just to get to 62.2 miles. I thought that if she was getting really tired at the end, that might not be too nice to kind of say, there's the house, and we still have a few miles to go. I thought that could be hard psychologically, and so instead of turning around where I turned around in October, we continued on to the halfway point and then turned around. And I'm glad we did, because, as I said, I think that made things a little bit easier psychologically. Anyway, I really enjoyed today's ride. I really enjoyed having Teresa along for today's ride. And I hope she will join me for the rest of the metric centuries for the year 2023. I hope that 2023 will have a better ending, and I will have more success with the challenge this year than I had last year. I hope you enjoyed today's ride, and I will turn you over to some music. Well, that was fun. Or maybe I should ask, was that fun?
Yeah, I had a great time.
Awesome. Well, do you feel like you accomplished something?
Yeah, it was good to get back on the bike for such a long time.
Good. Well, you did accomplish something. That was a metric century. That was 100 kilometers. It's pretty impressive. Most people have never done one. You can now say you've done one. You can tell your siblings, you can tell your kids. So it was a success. So until next time, stay safe out there.